our military in Vietnam yank the feet out from under them and leave our allies to be killed. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5, 2011, the Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton, for 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I come to the floor this afternoon as part of my series of talks designed to help members of the House and the Senate understand the place of the District of Columbia in our structure. It is an anomalous place, and when members come to the House of Representatives, they must find it very peculiar that anything having to do with the local jurisdiction comes here at all. The most important thing to remember as I speak this afternoon is that that anomaly got to be too much for the Congress, and 39 years ago the Congress sent back to the district the power to legislate for the District of Columbia. So if you hear members say we can legislate for the District of Columbia, you must point them to the Home Rule Act of 1973. It is true that on some matters the district cannot legislate for itself. Those matters involve things like imposing a commuter tax or changing the Height Act that regulates how high buildings can go in the district because we don't want to obscure the great monuments. But I assure you that the enumerated powers are quite rare, and that none of what I have to say this afternoon are among those areas where Congress has said Congress itself should be able to legislate, and yet my good friends on the other side insist upon imposing their own views on the District of Columbia quite undemocratically against our will. Even if you assumed that Congress could enact laws for the District of Columbia, no one would assume that Congress could, without any democratic accountability, enact laws that went counter to the laws we ourselves have enacted. Where are the small government Tea Party members, the ones who are trying to teach the House of Representatives a lesson about pulling back even from federal matters? But you cross the line very seriously when you involve yourselves in the local matters where you yourself cannot be held accountable. Do you believe in democracy or not? It seems to me that the entire notion of passing a law, imposing it on people, and they themselves have nothing to say about it, is the kind of authoritarianism that we criticize ourselves on this floor every single day in one fashion or another. Twice this week, members disregarded, Republican members, disregarded their own basic principles and sought to interfere with the local government of the District of Columbia and its citizens against their will in the most undemocratic fashion. No respect for democracy, no respect for federalism, no respect for their own principles. They move forward to say this is the way we would like it, no matter what you would like. As you might expect, we took exception. I am very pleased with the outpouring of support we have received from all over the country regarding the way the district was treated in the attempt of Representative Trent Frank to impose his view on reproductive choice on the women in positions of the District of Columbia. and I appreciate the support I have received when many were shocked that I was not granted the courtesy of testifying on a bill that affected only my own district. Let me say a word about that bill. Representative Trent Franks is from Arizona. The sponsor of this same bill in the Senate, a bill to impose a 20-week limit on abortions for women in the District of Columbia, that bill is sponsored by someone from at least as far away, Senator Mike Lee of Utah. Senator Lee had hardly hit the ground. I think had filed all of 9 bills when he filed a bill that would impose a 20-week limit on the District of Columbia, not on Utah, but on the District of Columbia. Representative Frank's bill wouldn't impose this on Arizona. It's on the District of Columbia. There's nobody in this House that would not have taken umbrage at such undemocratic audacity, and so we did. As to Senator Mike Lee, he realized what he was doing wasn't exactly kosher, because he introduced the bill, and though he's a new member and every new member puts out a release about what he's done, he didn't put a release on this bill, so we outed him. We put out a release on this bill. And then his newspapers began to talk, and so then he put out a release. I think you understand, I think it will be understood what I'm talking about when you see how this occurred. One thing that most Americans have learned to do is to respect the differences on very controversial issues. One of the most controversial is abortion, an issue that really turns off independence in this country but captures the verve of the right wing to this day, even though the right to the right of women to reproductive choice was declared decades ago in Roe versus Wade. And of course, when they come at women, Democrats respond. Under Roe versus Wade, a woman is entitled to seek an abortion at 20 weeks. In fact, the Supreme Court was at pains to say that it would not put a limit or a time on the number of weeks, that that's a matter of viability and a matter between the woman and her physician. Yet, Senator Mike Lee and Representative Trent Franks sought to put a number on the number of weeks on their own, in violation, of course, of the constitutional mandate in Roe versus Wade. What are we supposed to do? Sit down and take it? I asked to testify. Senator Trent Franks refused me the right to testify, even though the bill related only to my district, and he said because the rules said that the Democrats could have only one witness, and they have chosen a woman whom we recommended, by the way, Professor Christy Zink, who had an abortion at 20 weeks on the recommendation of her physicians and her family when the fetus was discovered to be hopelessly deformed. Of course, we would want the committee to hear from such a person, and the rules may well be what Representative Frank says they are. But he clearly has no sense of common courtesy, of comity, of congressional courtesy, where as a matter of right, any such rule would often be waived, particularly if the member's own district was implicated. It's bad enough to introduce a bill that has to do with somebody else's district where nobody, not the physicians who are implicated, not the women and families are implicated, none of them can reach you because they can't vote for you. Hardly an act of courage. If this is so important, and I have to believe it is, why wouldn't the Senator Lee and Representative Franks, introduce a bill for all the nation? Why does their courage stop at the district line? This should be a matter of principle. How could you possibly want to stop abortions after 20 weeks only in one district? Of course, Representative Franks is in the habit of refusing me the opportunity to testify when he introduces bills that affect only my district. He introduced a bill that passed here in the House but was stopped in the Senate that would have permanently kept the District of Columbia alone among scores of jurisdictions, but kept the District of Columbia from spending its own local taxpayer funds on abortions for low-income women. What in the world does this member have to do with how we in the District of Columbia spend money he had nothing to do with raising? Having been denied the right to testify on that bill, no wonder I was twice denied, except this time it went viral. And all over the United States they're talking about how a member introduces a bill relating to another member's district and she doesn't even get a waiver so that she can say something in behalf of her own constituents on the bill he has introduced, which will affect those constituents and not his own. And I'm supposed to like it. Well, I don't like it. And I'm not going to sit still for it. I came to the hearing yesterday, and everyone was polite. Representative Franks invited me to sit on the all-male panel to hear about how women in the District of Columbia should have their rights to reproductive choice cut off by him. I didn't give him the opportunity for that optic, to have me on the panel unable to say anything. Invite the member from the district to sit on the panel, to integrate it so that there is at least one woman, and tell her to keep her mouth shut while they talk about her district, hear from one of her constituents, and talk about denying the women and families in her district what women and families are entitled to everywhere in the United States. No, sir, thank you. What I want is the same rights everybody else has. I grew up as a second-class citizen in this town twice over. Second class because we didn't have a member of Congress until the 1970s, and second class because I was an African-American woman and as a child had to go to segregated schools. I'm tired of second class, and I'm not going to have my constituents, now that I am a member of Congress, treated any differently from the way Representative Trent Frank's constituents are treated, or Senator Mike Lee's constituents are treated. We are free and equal Americans. We pay federal income taxes just like everybody else, and yet we have no vote on the House floor. The nerve of these members putting a bill that they expected to come to the House floor, and I would not even be able to vote on the bill, and yet it would apply only to my constituents. Where is the sense of decency? There is none. I don't know about a war on women, but when you keep coming at the District of Columbia women, that's a war on them. And if you want to declare war, I'm here to do the best I can to fight back. First, it was our low-income women. Even now, they succeeded in getting a rider on an annual basis re-embedded in law. Now they want to do that on a permanent basis, and now they want to go to 20 weeks. And no woman, low income, high income, no woman could get an abortion. And our physicians who care for women from all over this region and all over the country, who found what Professor Cindy Zink's physician found was that she should not carry that fetus to full term, would have to somehow ask her to find someone outside of the District of Columbia to perform abortion under tragic circumstances. This is a woman who had 2 children, wanted another child. Who would put somebody through that? This is an insatiable hunger that the small government Tea Party Republicans are showing for interfering with the democratic rights of the people I represent. And I'm going to call you out. You're not going to get away with doing it in private. You're not going to get away with not having me testify. We're going to shout it to the hilltops that all you talk about, small government and the federal government should get out of everybody's lives, and now you're hopping over that principle into the lives of 600,000 people who are not accountable to you after the Congress said that governing for the District of Columbia after 1973 belongs to the mayor and the council of the District of Columbia only. No! We're not going to stand for it. You're going to hear from us. The bill is patently unconstitutional. These very courageous Republicans have taken it through 5 or 6 conservative states and gotten it passed there. They want a federal imprimatur on this bill, so they say, let's get the District of Columbia. What kind of courage do they lack? You believe it? Introduce it. Introduce it for the women of America. What are you afraid of? Where's your spine? Do you only have a spine when it comes to 600,000 people who have a representative whom you continue to disempower to have a vote on the House floor, including a vote on her own appropriation and a vote on the very bill that you have introduced to take away rights guaranteed under the Constitution that her citizens are entitled to. That bill is patently unconstitutional. Roe versus Wade indicates that women are entitled to abortion care until viability. But you know what else it is? That's a violation of our 14th Amendment rights. Because you are treating our women and our physicians differently than women and physicians are treated elsewhere in the United States. Now, don't come at me with that kind of unequal protection and expect the people I represent to say, okay, Mr. Congressman, just do whatever you like. Keep doing it. And we will keep calling you out. We will never let you get away with it as a free act of undemocratic intrusion into our lives. And here comes, last night, Representative Phil Gingrey. He had a resolution, non-binding, that would say that an active duty personnel in the District of Columbia on his personal time did not have to abide by the gun laws of the District of Columbia. Here we go with our gun laws. We have stricter gun laws than some. So be it. Some other states have stricter gun laws. Are we less Americans than others who enact their own laws? Who am I supposed to, at whose altar am I supposed to kneel? Who are my constituents supposed to bow down to? For the nobody in this House or Senate. Well, I oppose that. I don't think, because if Representative Gingrey of Georgia thinks that active duty personnel in their private capacities should not have to obey the gun laws, then they ought to think it for every state in the Union. You're not going to put on us bills that clearly have nationwide import in order to make your ideological points in a cheap and cynical way, because that's what it is. It's on the cheap. It's a defiance of democracy, and it expects us to just let it go. Now, on the contrary, it gets our gander up. To be treated as less than full American citizens gets our gander up. So, sure, this thing passed. It was non-binding. But the fact is, that if you want to do a non-binding resolution that says that your gun laws shouldn't be applicable to active duty personnel in their personal capacities, there is no possible reason to limit that to one jurisdiction. We will not have it. We are not vehicles, pawns, or instruments to be used at will. We are full-fledged American citizens who fought and died in every American war, including the war that created the United States of America. We are the only tax-paying citizens of the United States of America who have no voting representation in this House and none at all in the Senate. Get off of your high, undemocratic horses. Bad enough that you allow that kind of a situation to go on for 200 years. But when you pile on and want to enact legislation that you don't have the nerve or the guts to enact for the entire country, but do those bills only for the District of Columbia, expect the District of Columbia to come back at you. We may be only one jurisdiction, but we will never allow ourselves and our citizenship to be degraded, and we will not allow ourselves to be demeaned as the Franks Lee bill did and as the Gingrey bill did. Go home and make your own constituents understand while you are legislating for somebody else's district. And you tell me whether your Tea Party friends will say, well done. I doubt it. Mr. Speaker, this was a an occasion where twice in 1 week they tried to roll over the District of Columbia. Once was too much. Twice I simply could not abide. So I issue fair warning. It's only me here. I can't hurt anybody. I can't even vote against you. But I can tell you this much. I'm not going to allow the unequal treatment of the tax-paying citizens I represent to go unaddressed ever, not for one single moment. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January the 5th, 2011, the Chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Woodall, for 30 minutes.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate you staying late on a Friday afternoon so that the gentlelady from the District of Columbia can have her time and I can have a little time too. I know folks often think, Mr. Speaker, the votes have ended at the end of the day and folks have left the chamber and you wonder what in the world's going on there in Congress. Why are those guys still down there on the floor of the House talking after everybody else has gone back to their office? Well, a lot of good reasons for that. As the gentlelady from the District of Columbia said, folks don't always get their say in the hustle and bustle of voting on those amendments. That it moves fast, limited to 2 and 3 and 5 and 10 minutes of debate at the time, and so you need some additional time at the end of the day. But more importantly, and I guess this is just one of the wonderful facets of modern-day life, Mr. Speaker. You and I are both freshmen here in the House, but they piped this back into our offices. I always thought when I was growing up, and I suspect you did too, Mr. Speaker, when you're at home and you turn on C-SPAN or it's on the college campus or what have you, and you look and the chamber's empty, and you're thinking, what's going on? You don't realize that it's piped through the closed circuit and it's sitting on everybody's television back at home. Because when I got up here as a freshman, Mr. Speaker, I got so busy I couldn't afford to sit down here on the House floor and spend my days here. I had to sit back in the office, meeting with constituents, going through the paperwork, doing all those things that we have to do each day. And what a wonderful thing that is. Lousy because it sends the wrong impression to America as it shows up on C-SPAN, but wonderful that folks were able to both serve their constituents back in their offices as well as keep track of what's going on the floor. And what I brought down on the floor today, Mr. Speaker, and I know you can't see it from your chair, but you have these numbers committed to memory just as I do. I've got the pie chart here of the spending in this country. And, you know, spending comes in two parts. It comes in the parts that unless the members of Congress act each and every year, the spending goes away. They call that discretionary spending, as you know, Mr. Speaker. You have to affirmatively act in Congress or else the spending goes away. The other part of spending is called mandatory spending, and that's the part of spending that goes out the door whether Congress shows up to work or not. President could take the year off, Congress could take the year off. That money is going to go out the door. That's our parents' and our grandparents' Social Security checks. Congress doesn't have to affirmatively act to give you Social Security. Medicare, if you're 65 years old, you've worked the required amount of time, you show up at the Medicare office, you just get Medicare, and then we have to figure out how to pay for it. That's called the mandatory spending side of the ledger. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, the discretionary spending side of the ledger, the part that we have to affirmatively act on each year, represents about 1/3 of all federal dollars. That automatic spending, Mr. Speaker, that spending that goes out the door whether Congress shows up or not, represents 2/3 of everything that we spend. Now, you know as I do, Mr. Speaker, that when we actually talk about spending money, about 40 cents out of every dollar that this chamber spends, that this nation spends, is borrowed from the next generation of Americans. 40 cents out of every dollar, Mr. Speaker, is money we don't have, but we borrow from our children and our grandchildren. That's why the spending decisions we make are so important, why you and I are working so hard to try to restrain that spending. I'll give you an example, Mr. Speaker. If you started a government on the day that Jesus Christ was born, and you borrowed $1 million a day to fund your government, From the day Jesus Christ was born until today, 7 days a week you're borrowing that money. From the day Jesus Christ was born through today, you would have to continue to borrow $1 million a day, every day, 7 days a week, for another 700 years to borrow your first $1 trillion. Your first $1 trillion, Mr. Speaker. You know how much we've borrowed from our children and our grandchildren. And by we, I mean folks who have come from both parties, generations before us, and still today, 15 and a half, with no end in sight. No end in sight. Now, I don't want to be about doom and gloom, Mr. Speaker. You know me. We're part of this freshman class. When one of us falls, there are another 99 to pick them up and set them back on track. I brought down a chart today to talk about our successes, because we really have had some successes. Now, as I was listening to the gentlelady from District of Columbia talk before, it sounded like this is a very partisan place to work. And I know when I pick up the newspaper, that's what I read too. But it's not true. You can't do anything up here as a party. It's not about party. It's about the 900,000 people I represent back home. I'm a Southern Republican, Mr. Speaker. I'm a hardcore right-winger. I have more in common with a Democrat from Tennessee than I do Republicans from California. Right? This isn't about party. This is about America. And the only things that get done working together. Why? Because we have a Republican House, we have a Democratic Senate, we have a Democrat in the White House, and we have a constituency. We have an America that is divided about what to do. But I don't think there's anybody out there, well, with the exception of the President, Mr. Speaker, who believes that the problem is that we're not spending enough. I think a lot of folks think Washington is wasting the money that it's spending and that we can do better. And let me talk about those successes, Mr. Speaker, because I have them right here. I've got a bar chart, Mr. Speaker. I'm showing FY 2010. That was before you and I got here. $1.28 trillion in discretionary spending. Now, there's a lot of funny math in Washington, D.C., as you and I have learned, Mr. Speaker. A lot of funny math. But when I say $1.28 trillion, I just mean that. $1.28 trillion, no rates of growth, no inflation, no time value of money, no index dollars, just real money like it sits in your wallet, if your wallet could hold $1.28 trillion. FY 2011, Mr. Speaker, the year you and I showed up to this institution, we were still working on the FY 11 budget in 2012 because the folks who left the body before us didn't get it done. We actually reduced spending. Doesn't happen often in America. But we reduced discretionary spending in real dollars, actual dollars, from what we were spending in 2010 to what we spent in 2011. But that wasn't enough for this freshman class, Mr. Speaker. You know it wasn't. In 2012, we reduced spending again. Again, not rates of growth, not funny math, actual dollars going out the door. Fewer dollars went out the door in discretionary spending in 2012. We're in the middle of 2012. 2012 ends on September 30th, as you know, Mr. Speaker. Fewer dollars will go out the door in 2012 than went out in 2011. Of course, fewer dollars went out in 2011 than in 2010. 2 years in a row, the first time since World War II, Mr. Speaker, we've reduced spending in this country by focusing on the priorities that our voters back home have asked us to focus on. And we're doing it again for 2013. That process is going on right now. We've begun the process of appropriating dollars for the 2013 fiscal year, that fiscal year that will start this October, October 1st, having those debates, open debates, allowing amendments from all parties here, Mr. Speaker. And we are on track to spend less in 2013 than we're spending right now in 2012. Budget in my office, Mr. Speaker, one of those things we actually have control over. The budget for the 7th District of Georgia, Mr. Speaker, lower in 2012 than it was in 2008 because we have this new Congress that said thrift has to begin at home. If I'm going to look to other programs to cut, let's start with our own office budget. So we're having some successes. It's not all about arguing up here. It's not all about fussing at one another. It's about trying to come together and finding those opportunities that we can agree on. And when I talk about the way spending has actually gone down, I'm not talking about our vision of how it should go down, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking about bills that have been signed into law by the President of the United States. Guaranteed savings that cannot be taken away. That's the kind of work we've gotten done here in 16 months, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to have worked with you on it. This chart, though, shows the challenges that we're facing. And I see some folks sitting in the back of the room, Mr. Speaker, so I'm gonna hold this one up, if you don't mind, just to make sure everybody can see it. I've got two lines here, Mr. Speaker. I've got the red line that shows spending in this country. The red line that shows where spending is headed in this country. Now, this chart goes, as you know, Mr. Speaker, from 1947, the end of World War II, as America was coming out of World War II, it begins to track spending in this country, tracks it with a red line. Here we are right here in today's dollars, Mr. Speaker. So the red line tracks spending going back to World War II. The green line tracks taxes going back to World War II as a percent of the economy, right? Because a dollar is not the same dollar today it was in 1947. Your parents probably tell you, like my parents tell me, Mr. Speaker, oh, Rob, I used to go to the movies for a nickel, and I had money left over that I could buy a Coke and popcorn with. Yeah, you get that same story, Mr. Speaker? Dollar's not the same dollar today it was then. So we track this as a percentage of GDP, a percentage of our entire economy. Now, I want you to look, Mr. Speaker, at how level this green line is. Green line are taxes. Taxes that the American people are willing to pay. It doesn't matter whether the income tax rate has been 90%, as it was in the Carter years, or whether the income tax rate is 28%, as it was in the Reagan years. Taxes as a percentage of the size of our economy have remained relatively stable. That's the flat green line. The red line is the spending that this Congress, this Senate, other presidents have chosen to associate with America. Now, you tell me, Mr. Speaker, do we have a taxation problem in this country, or do we have a spending problem in this country? And you need to look no further than a relatively level tax line and an incredibly exploding spending line. Spending is the challenge, and that's what you and I are focused on here in this body, Mr. Speaker. But all spending is not created equal. The United States Constitution gives us responsibilities. Gives us responsibilities to defend this country, gives us responsibilities to regulate trade. There are responsibilities that the Constitution says, Congress, you need to raise money and you need to spend money on these priorities. But this chart, Mr. Speaker, tracks, going back to 1965 through today, that discretionary part of the spending pie that I showed earlier, that part that we actually have to affirmatively act on every year, and the mandatory part, that part that just goes out the door automatically. And again, Mr. Speaker, what you see is discretionary spending in terms of real dollars is staying relatively flat. What pushes the line up is this growth in mandatory spending. And why does mandatory spending grow? Because it's automatic, because you and I, Mr. Speaker, don't have an opportunity each and every year to try to rein that in, to do oversight on it. It requires action by the Senate and by the President and by this House to change the laws about the automatic spending to stop it. If we can't agree on how to stop it, it just keeps going. That distinguishes it from discretionary spending, where we have to affirmatively vote yes or no each year. That's the spending we've been so successful at controlling. Mr. Speaker, this chart just shows it a little differently. I've got the blue line representing mandatory spending and the red line representing discretionary spending. And what you see here is that between 1962 and 2012, the last 50 years, discretionary spending, which used to be most of what Congress does, has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as a piece of the pie, and mandatory spending, that goes out the door automatically, is getting larger and larger and larger and larger. And so I say to you, Mr. Speaker, and I say to the young people who are in your district, if you're worried about your economic future, should you focus on discretionary spending? Absolutely you should, but should you concern yourself with mandatory spending more? The answer is yes. That's where the growth is. That's where the inability to constrain it is. And that's now where the big, big dollars are. It's mandatory spending, Mr. Speaker. And it's getting worse. I mean, I told you I'd bring you some good news, Mr. Speaker, and I've got more good news to bring you. But we need to be honest about the nature of the challenge. Because I talk to folks back home, Mr. Speaker, they say, Rob, it can't be as bad as you say that it is. It can't be as bad. I was just looking at the federal government books about 4 years ago, and things looked like they were sustainable. Well, Mr. Speaker, you know, the world's changed a lot in the last 4 years. And that's not a political statement. It started changing under the watch of President George Bush. It continued changing under the watch of President Barack Obama. I remember growing up in the 1980s, Mr. Speaker. Ronald Reagan was president. We used to talk about the deficits we were running, worried that the American economy might not survive. Got to get those deficits under control. Those deficits, Mr. Speaker, those deficits are a page relative to the deficits we're running today, which look like a book. Trillion-dollar deficits every year. The public debt, the debt that our young people owe, Mr. Speaker, has increased 50% in the last 4 years. Now, change doesn't usually happen in America that fast. Change is usually slow. It was designed to be slow. You know, my gripe with the United States Senate, Mr. Speaker, a lot of folks say, dadgum that Senate, they hadn't passed a budget in the last 3 years. Well, I share that frustration. But the truth is, I'm not frustrated with the Senate that they're moving too slow. The Constitution designed the Senate to move slow. I'm disturbed that over the last 3 years, the Senate has been moving so fast. It was supposed to play a deliberative role, but instead it passed stimulus bill after stimulus bill, health care bill after health care bill, regulatory bill after regulatory bill, and did not slow the process down the way that our founding fathers designed the Senate to operate. And what you get, you can see it here on this chart, Mr. Speaker, this red line is tracking federal revenue, the blue line is tracking federal spending. They move in concert right up until 2007, into 2008, into 2009, into 2010, where those lines diverge, Mr. Speaker. These trillion-dollar deficits. That's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. We've taken steps to do it, but there's more that we have to do. And it's not easy to get it done. This shows the chart differently, Mr. Speaker, because there are some folks out there, because I go home and I ask people in my district, Mr. Speaker, I say, now, of the $800 billion that the federal government spent in the stimulus package, now $800 billion, there are about 154 million families in this country, right? So that's about $6 for every billion, 8 times 6. That's about $4,800, Mr. Speaker. I ask them, did you get your $4,800? Did you feel it? When the federal government borrowed $800 billion from your children and your grandchildren, did you feel the additional money in your pocket? And the answer is no, Rob. I don't know where that money went, but it didn't come to me and my family. Look what's happened with spending, Mr. Speaker. This is spending as a percent of GDP in inflation-adjusted dollars. Here we go. From 1970 to 2010, the average household income in this country, Mr. Speaker, increased by 25% in inflation-adjusted dollars. The buying power of the average American family rose about 25% over the last 40 years. 40 years, 25% growth in spending power of the average American family. The red line represents federal spending, Mr. Speaker. Over those same 40 years, federal spending has increased 290%. You and your family have an additional 25% to spend. We, the federal government, have increased our spending 290%. You know, I learned something up here, Mr. Speaker, during freshman orientation. It turns out there's no secret drawer that we dig into here to get money to spend. The only place we can get money is to either take it from American families in taxes or borrow it from American children in future obligations. Those are the only two places we can get money, and that's what we've done to the tune of 290%, while households in this country only saw an increase of about 24%. Going back to the good news, Mr. Speaker, it's not as if there aren't places that we can reduce spending. And we can agree on both sides of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, of those areas to reduce spending. This is a chart of the 10-year federal program growth rates, Mr. Speaker. 10 years. This is what has happened to spending over the last 10 years in federal dollar terms. Won't surprise many people, Mr. Speaker. Energy conservation is at the top of the list. In 2002, we spent almost $1 billion a year on energy conservation spending, $1 billion in 2002. Today, we spend almost $10 billion, a 975% increase in spending over 10 years. Our food stamp program, Mr. Speaker. Now, I know families are hurting these days, and we're trying our best to minister to the needs of those families. Over the last 10 years, food stamp spending in this country has increased 267%. We had a debate on the floor of this House last week. You remember that, Mr. Speaker. The debate was, should you actually have to qualify for food stamps to get food stamps, or should you just be able to get food stamps anyway because you're involved in a number of other programs? And it was a contentious debate. We could not even agree, Mr. Speaker, that the only folks who should get food stamps are those who qualify for food stamps. There was a sense that we need to put food stamps into more families' homes. I get that folks want to legislate with their heart in this body, Mr. Speaker, but don't ask me to spend other people's money with my heart. Ask me to dig into my own wallet to legislate with my heart. When I come to Washington, D.C., I've got to legislate with my head, and I will tell you, the bill that we put forward last week, instead of increasing food stamp spending 270%, as is the law of the land, we wanted to increase food stamp spending by only 260%. Hear that, Mr. Speaker. Instead of 270%, we wanted it to be 260%, and it turned into a knockdown, drag-out brouhaha here on the House floor. I got to tell you, Mr. Speaker, folks need to go home and talk to the young people in the district. Talk to those folks who are going to pay back that money that's been, the debt that's been increased by 50% over the past 4 years. Ask them if they think in the trillion dollars that go out the door in Washington, D.C., do they think we might be able to reduce the rate of growth of some spending programs from 270% down to just 260%? I don't think that's unreasonable. Education spending, Mr. Speaker, up 239%. Unemployment spending up 100%. Medicaid spending up 86%. Housing assistance up 79%. Community development up 76%. Ground transportation up 62%. Federal employee retirement up 53%. The American economy up 16%. It's the only place we have to get money. Folks paying taxes. Folks don't pay taxes unless they're making some money. American economy has grown 16%, while the kind of spending that's happened in Washington, D.C. is growing in the triple digits. And, Mr. Speaker, GDP is up 16%, but family income in this country over these same 10 years, down 4%. It's not free money in Washington, D.C., Mr. Speaker. Every dollar that goes out the door is either borrowed from foreign creditors like China, or it's taken from American families that would have spent that on something else, like food, or education, or housing, or possibly even a summer vacation, Mr. Speaker, if they're fortunate. Median income down 4%, Mr. Speaker. Spending in the federal government up almost 1,000% in some categories. Well, we're taking action, Mr. Speaker. That's the take-home message here. So many folks talk and talk and talk and talk, and nothing ever gets done. And candidly, when I read the newspaper and they describe what's happening here, Mr. Speaker, it sounds like they're describing people talking and talking and talking and talking and nothing getting done. But it is getting done. It is getting done. I showed you that chart already of how the discretionary spending was coming down, not how we wanted it to come down, but how it was actually coming down. What I have here is a chart about the Budget Control Act, Mr. Speaker. The Budget Control Act that begins to go after some of that mandatory spending I talked about earlier, goes after some more discretionary spending, trying to bring spending down in a responsible way, but folks need to know. In terms of where we're saving money in sequestration, part of that Budget Control Act, about 14.6% of the savings are in interest. By reducing what we're spending, we're going to save about 14.6% of our goal by not having to borrow more money and not having to pay interest on it. And you see net interest as a size of the spending today, you see it as a size of the savings down below. That's going to be a good chunk. Over here, this giant square, Mr. Speaker, that's the entitlement spending. That's that mandatory spending that we're talking about. The little bitty square down here, about 14.8%, is how much we're going to save out of that pie. Now, folks, I just got to tell you, and I think honesty is one of the things that we lack. Nobody likes to deliver bad news. This big square is where the dollars are. We got to get into that big square if we're going to put our fiscal path back on track. I'm in my 40s, Mr. Speaker. We have to come to folks who are in their 40s and tell them today, Rob, you are not going to get the Social Security and Medicare benefits your parents got. Because I'm not. We've got to come to people today and give them the bad news. Rob, you are going to continue paying the highest payroll taxes in the history of this country to go into the Medicare and Social Security Trust Fund, but when you retire, you will not get the kind of medical and Social Security benefits that your parents got. We've got to deliver that bad news because I'm not. And other folks in their 40s aren't, and folks in their 30s aren't, and their 20s aren't, and their teens aren't. We overpromised, Mr. Speaker. If you don't believe we overpromised, I want you to go back, and you can look it up on the Internet, Mr. Speaker. In fact, it's on the Social Security webpage. A young woman named Ida Mae Fuller. You may not know who Ida Mae Fuller is, but she was the very first American to retire under the Social Security program. Very first American to retire under the Social Security program. The very first monthly check that she received, Mr. Speaker, returned every penny that she'd paid in taxes over her lifetime. Hear that. The first monthly check that she received returned to her every penny that she'd paid in Social Security taxes over her lifetime, and she continued to receive a check of that size every month for the next almost 30 years until she died in her early 90s. Well, Mr. Speaker, when you're handing out money like that, you have to know that system's not going to sustain itself. In those days, there were about 30 American workers paying in for every one retiree, and so we could be generous. Today, there are about 2 American workers paying in for every one retiree. And the American workers can't afford that. I don't want to pull the rug out from under today's seniors, Mr. Speaker. We've made promises, and we need to keep those promises. Folks have lived their entire life banking on those promises, and I think we owe it to folks to come through. They did everything they were supposed to do. They paid their taxes. They played by the rule. I think we owe it to them to come through for them. But for folks in their 40s, for folks in their 30s, for folks in their 20s, we need to deliver the bad news today that train has come to a stop. And we'll tell you what the new plan's going to be. We'll tell you what the new dollars are going to be, and you'll be able to plan for your future accordingly. But know that we have to deliver that kind of candid bad news. Take-home message from this chart right here, Mr. Speaker, is that defense spending in this country over a 8-year period is about $5.3 trillion. But sequestration is going to find about 42% of the savings out of the entire bill out of the defense side of the budget. Now, I'm one of those folks who says we've been spending on wars for the last decade. Do we have waste in the Defense Department just like we have waste in the Ag Department and waste in the National Park Service and waste in the judiciary and on and on and on? Of course we do. You can't be in the federal government business spending other people's money without getting careless from time to time, which is why we need to push that money back to the state level. We can find savings in the Defense Department. But we're coming to a point where the President's Secretary of Defense tells us we are about to begin to undermine national security, our troops, and their families. Now, if you don't know, the Secretary of Defense today is Leon Panetta. He was once the Democratic chairman of the Budget Committee right here in this House. He was once the OMB director, the Office of Management and Budget. That's the budget office for the President. He was once the OMB director for President Clinton. He was once President Clinton's chief of staff. He understands everything that's happening in this town. He understands the challenges in Congress. He understands the challenges in the White House. And as Secretary of Defense, he understands the challenges of defending a nation. And he says, we're on the verge, if we keep targeting defense, of undermining national security, our troops, and their families. Now, that's not to say, Mr. Speaker, that defense gets a free pass. It absolutely doesn't. I have a chart right here. It shows defense spending, Mr. Speaker. It starts in FY 2009. It goes out to 2021. It's in constant dollars. It's a downward slope. If we do absolutely nothing more than what we've already done, Mr. Speaker, we're going to reduce defense spending year after year after year in a responsible way that protects our national security, protects our troops, and protects their families. But if we leave in place this sequester, Mr. Speaker, it's represented by the light blue line down here at the bottom, you're going to see defense spending cut almost in half. I challenge you, Mr. Speaker, and I challenge you to challenge your constituents. Go and find the men and women in uniform in your communities. Go and find them and ask them if there is waste, fraud, and abuse in their particular part of the Defense Department. I promise you they're going to tell you yes. I want you to ask them if there's 50% waste, fraud, and abuse. And the answer is going to be no. We can absolutely reduce defense spending, Mr. Speaker. You and I, together with our colleagues on the Democratic side of the aisle, have absolutely reduced defense spending. But it has to be done in a responsible way. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate you being with me down here today. I appreciate your partnership in these successes, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman have a motion?
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, May 22nd, 2012.
The House has wrapped up business for the week. Today they